expounding the common source of delusion and enlightenment to sum up the intermingling of phenomenons and nominals. Hunam Maitreya Yaniputra, because you cling to the form and space that displays each other in the Tathata store. The latter, in accordance with your karma, manifests as space and form which pervade the whole Dhamma realm, not the result. There appear within it the blown wind, still warmness, and the bright sun and dark clouds. Due to their delusion and philosophy, living beings turn their back on Buddha and cling to the sense object, thereby giving rise to trouble with the resistant appearance of illusory form. So basically, what I say that we attach to the form, right? The form and space. So that's why they display as they separate each other in the Tathagata store. You know, we talk about the Tathagata store, right? That's the in the eight consciousness, right? It store everything in the according to the unenlightened beings levels, we call the eight consciousness, but for the enlightened beings like the Buddha, it's called the Tathagata store, right? The later in accordance with the your karma, this one according to our karma manifest as a form and the space pervade the whole Dhamma realm. So that's why we see the blown wind, the stillness, the bright sun, dark clouds. But one important thing is that most of Mahayana Sutra mentioned that because of delusion, so we turn our back to the Buddha, because most of the time we attach to the same object. That's why we have all kind of problems in our life. You know, I encounter some Buddhists. They are in dilemma that in one way they really want to progress their spirituality, but in another way somehow it complicate a conflict with their spouse. Let me put it this way. So their spouse working on accumulating wealth. That means they like to enjoy material life. Another spouse, they support that spouse, but they really want to work on the spiritual path. So you understand, one spouse go to material life, another spouse go to spirituality. So what do you think with your experience? Is that work well, or is some kind of conflict that is not easy to compromise, or what? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is it's a little tricky, because I think if we have the intention to turn towards spirituality and not put as much of a focus onto material, well, we still have within us the possibility of desire for the material. So if you know, we are living with someone who that's the thing, there's not there's not a sort of spiritual fulfillment possibility in their minds, but the fulfillment is thought to come from the forms. Well, if the person that's like, if it's the person who's earning the money, who's wants to focus more on kind of spiritual life, well, now there's going to be conflict, because the spouse is going to look around at other people and say, oh, I want, you know, what they want, and they're probably going to be a little upset with the person who's earning the money, and they're, you know, and they may even feel a little guilty for being upset. But then I don't know, I think pragmatism is the best way forward, because we could, like, and I don't know if this is in line or not, but it would seem to me that if one's partner really did have a desire for wealth, then to try to help them have that as much as possible, without compromising the core values, of the teachings, could be an expression of the bodhisattva way to kind of to delay one's own, um, attainments, to delay dedicating more fully to, um, to spiritual pursuits in order to, uh, accommodate that other person's desire.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you saw a lot of examples when the Buddha was alive and after, where it was really people who left the home life were very praised.
Mm-hmm.
It seems there's certainly some circumstances where that could be very damaging to the person who is left if they don't have the means to support themselves as well. Or
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me share with you the image. Uh, yeah, I was in Houston a couple of weeks, and we had, right, 10 days of reciting the Flower Moon Sutra in Vietnamese and the other sutra, the Lotus Sutra too. And at the beginning of the session, these 5 people, most of them are old. They just want to practice as a novice for only 10 days. You see this?
yes, Tikiao Fab told me about that.
You seen this image?
No, I haven't seen these images, but he was talking about the acting as a novice for 10 days.
Right here. This is a short ceremony. So they
Mhm.
one who's told the two side there. So anyway, so actually at beginning, some lady they sign up to take to engage in that type of 10 days of petitions as a novice, but somehow, especially their husband, would not like that.
Oh,
Especially,
really?
yeah,
Even for just 10 days?
yeah, it's cutting the hair. So they really
Oh, they have to shave their head? Oh, wow. Okay. Some women look really nice with their head shaved too.
for us that's wonderful, but for them, there's no way because they still have business to do. They still interact with the daily life, the mundane life. That's
Mhm.
why their husbands reject the idea, and they even went against that. So to scare some of them that they could not join in this type of 10 days of participant as a young novices. So that's why we have only 5. Yeah, 5 or 6 of them. That's all. Yeah,
Mm.
a lot of them sign up, but their spouse could not approve that. That's why we come back to the question. You see, for us, that great that people can practice to have a simple life, but for others, no way. They have to move on with their mundane life. Is they see that's an interruption. For example, for the lady, the hair is very important in society, right? And
Very.
have to go out to deal with business. And what happened? They have boy hair for the lady. You understand? Just
I guess
straight.
they could wear a wig.
But still, it's pretty weird for them when they do business. That's why their husband are concerned, and even some lady they don't work out there, but they still concerned that the wife would take up forever.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not easy, not easy. So
the fear part. Yeah.
all kind of in Buddhism, that the Buddha say all kind of ropes, a string that ties down here, whether it's our spouse, our children, um, our, our wealth, even our thinking, right? As much as we attach to them, we get stuck with them. We tie down ourselves. Anyway, so I just want to share with you those kind of
In a sense, though, wouldn't the so that like in this case of the wife whose husband is upset, um, the the wife wants to make a move towards this practice,
Mhm.
and the husband has fear and has his own kind of wants and desires. And so in this case, and it could easily be switched, right? It could easily be the husband and the wife being afraid. But then what the connection is that they care about what their spouse thinks.
Mhm.
So they're like, it could be an expression of compassion, and then also still a practice of patience, where they may want to do this thing, but they have to actually like let go of that without resentment and then be patient. So in a way, still they're like getting an opportunity to practice.
But most of them, they don't understand this kind of principle. They get concerned that their wife would take off forever.
Yeah.
And in one way, and also they feel concerned that when their wives shed their hair, just look awkwardly when they do business or when they interact with other people. They
Mm-hmm.
use. Um, they don't think much about practicing up simple life. Right? But that's why. That's why. Even they are, most of them are above 50, not 20, not 30, but 50, 60, 70.
Seems like the husband should like give him a little bit of leeway at that point. That age, it seems like you could. What are you worried about? If you've been together for 20, 30 years, like, yeah. If they did leave, it's kind of like, all right, well, that's okay. You're still fine. If you left, if you want to then meet someone new, well, meet someone new, or do something else with your time, huh?
Of course, as devout Buddhists, it's okay with them, but not for them. No way, no way they can accept that. Anyway, or I get to go back to that. That's why the Buddha says the conclusion there. The Buddha say that we take things, we see things as happy, but actually the core, that's a source of suffering, and vice versa. We see the suffering as the source of happiness, right? For us, when we see how things as suffering, but actually that's the source of happiness, like we do the practice of meditation, of sitting beside the sutra and so forth. For common people, they say, oh, we waste our time to sit there idly, we sit there to do meditation to waste our time. But yes, that's a sort of happiness, and vice versa for them. Well, on weekend we go to enjoy food at some famous restaurant or travel around so forth. For them, this is a source of happiness, but for us, a source of suffering there. So depend on how we view. Anyway, so the Buddha say that's why we turn our back on Buddhi, that enlightenment. Right. Yeah. Okay, so you have anything to say about this? Or you want to move?
I
Yeah,
think we may have read that one last week.
oh, you did? Okay, all
I
right.
think we may have. I'm not sure, but I remember reading about Klesa, and I think we did. I'm not positive, but
No, I record this. I wrote down this one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead, please. The next one.
as to me, my uncreated and unending profound enlightenment accords with the Tathagata store, which is absolute Bodhi, and ensures my perfect insight into the Dharma realm, where the one is infinite and the infinite is one, where the large manifests in the small and vice versa, where the immovable Bodhi mandala appears everywhere, where my body embraces the 10 directions of inexhaustible space, where the kingdom of treasures, i.e., the Buddha land, appears on the tip of a hair, and where I sit in a speck of dust to turn the wheel of the Dharma. As I have wiped out all illusory objects of senses to accord with Bodhi, I have realized the nature of the absolute enlightenment of the Bhuta Tathata.
Hmm.
Wow, yeah, so very, very beautiful. Um, so this part is highlighting the dissolution of like distinctions, such as big and small, where there, you know, when from the state of that enlightenment, these sorts of declarations make sense, that one is infinite and infinite is one. Whereas in an intellectual, I mean, intellectually, we kind of get stopped. We can understand it a little bit, but this is like a really profound statement.
Mm.
And the sense I get of the immovable Bodhi mandala appears everywhere. To me, I understand like a mandala as a sort of balance or organization within the mind, so that when we're talking about the state of Bodhi, that there is a balance to Bodhi that makes it stable. That the Bodhi mandala appearing everywhere is that it's just in that state of full enlightenment. It's totally grounded, like it's perfused the whole experience, and so there's not that distinction between internal and external anymore, and so that everywhere is this the kind of the mark, the Bodhi mandala, the mark of enlightenment on all phenomena. And my body embraces the 10 directions of inexhaustible space. So there's not a sense of identification with a small body, but the body being the Dharma body, which embraces the 10 directions of inexhaustible space. And again, we see this, the idea of large and small not being relevant, so that a Buddha land can appear on the tip of a hair, and he could sit in the Buddha sits in a speck of dust to turn the wheel of the Dharma, so that in this state of enlightenment, size doesn't matter. Since all illusory objects have been wiped out, there's no longer identification with phenomena as sort of individual and real, but it's just seen as illusory. So all of the senses are now in accordance with Bodhi. So there's not an obstruction that's flowing from ignorance and attachment, but the senses don't obstruct Bodhi at all. There's this Zen saying, affirming faith and mind, by Jingming, that is like so amazing. I mean, I think it kind of summarizes the suragama. Basically, it takes maybe 4 minutes to recite, and it says, "Do not reject the sense domain, for as it is whole and complete, the sense world is enlightenment." So, in the beginning of our practice, I think it can appear that the senses are an obstruction. We see an object of our desire, and so we desire it. So we could say that, oh, like seeing the object is a problem. But when after enlightenment, doesn't matter what we see, because there's not an attachment, there's not ignorance, there's not illusion. So there's no need to try to like protect, you know, to deny any of the senses, because we're not going to be tempted to deny the nature to pursue some sense thing, because we see it as just totally illusory and a temporary manifestation that pales in comparison to the true nature. And this last word, the Bhuta Tathata, I've heard of like Bhutagama, which is like plants, but I've never seen that word, the Bhuta Tathata.
Yeah, I don't know too. Let me check it out.
Because I thought Bhuta was referring to plants generally in I think Pali.
Yeah,
maybe it's Sanskrit.
Let me go back to here. Yeah. Let me see here. Okay. Here, this is the meaning here. Yeah, actually, the first time maybe basic Buddhi to expose to the unfaded absoluteness. Probably this misspelling, right? Bata Takha. This one here. Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah, this one here. The basic Buddhi to expose the unfettered absolute. Yeah, we go back here. Okay, I think we discussed before. In the Zen tradition, they say that the first 30 years of someone practicing Zen tradition, the first 30 years they see trees as trees, mountain as mountain, water as water. You heard about that, right?
I don't think I've heard that about the first 30 years. No.
30 years, we see things like water as water, mountain as mountain, and so forth. And the next 30 years, there's no water, there's no mountain, there's no trees. But the last 30 years, yes, mountain is mountain, water is water, tree is tree. So in total, 90 years. 90 years can change our view. So what do you think? The first 30 years, right? For the practitioners, they say, oh, mountain is mountain, tree is tree, rock is rock. That means they're still in the mundane world, right? They still have some sort of attachment for the first 40 years. And the next 30 years, they see everything is empty. That's why they don't see trees, they don't see rock, they don't see anything. Everything is empty. Everything is illusion, you can say that. That's the next 30 years. And so it's in total 60 years. But the last portion, another 30 years. So they see river is river, tree is tree, mountain is mountain. So what's the difference then?
Yeah, I think that there can be attachment to form initially, and then there can be attachment to emptiness and aversion to labeling. And then when the mind comes to a place of neutrality, then perhaps the labeling just takes its appropriate place, and there's no longer attachment to form, but there's not a need to like see the emptiness of it as much anymore, because it's already been seen and came to its natural place. The balance of them is there.
Yeah, that's wonderful explanation. Yeah, so basically, again, the first 30 years we still attached to the form like everyone else. The next 30 years we may recognize the illusion, but the two extreme, right? One is attached to the material life, another one is to run away from them, right? See them as illusion. So we're not living in that present moment. So the last 30 years, yes, everything's there. We just accept them as a natural way of life. So. But it's not easy. It takes 90 years. 90 years.
You gotta start when you're like 10 years old to really get the whole 90 in.
Yeah, it takes that kind of long periods of time to recognize. It takes times. It takes time. So that's why it's better for us to stay away from the extreme. The attachment or the rejection, right? Either we attach to them or we reject them. So we stay in the middle, get to accept them as the way they are. Okay, so let's move on then. Oh, one thing I want to mention this. It's similar to the Flower Adornment Sutra idea. At Buddha land, the kingdom of treasure or Buddha land appears on the tip of a hair. We talked about that many times, right? But again, now we have a small chip, right? A small jump drive can hold a library of books. So that's thing that we can recognize. They do actually they are more advanced nowadays. So how about where I sit in the peak, I speak of thus to turn the wheel of Dharma. What does this meaning then?
Yeah, I mean, it just suggests that large or small. That's one thing it suggests. Says that large and small don't matter in that state of enlightenment, and there's probably more dimensions of that meaning as well that I don't grasp or can't speak to.
And so again, yeah, you will have the notion of big and small, right? Many and ones, and so forth. That's why when we live with our present moment, we live with our pure mind. Those type of discrimination, those type of duality won't exist anymore. But for us now, we still have to handle that type of duality. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The Tata store containing both phenomenons and phenomenons. Meditative study of the mean, dhyana. Elimination of is to reveal the true mind. The fundamental, absolute, and perfect mind of the Tathagata storm is neither mind nor the elements of space, earth, water, wind, and fire. Neither eyes nor ear, nose, tongue, body, nor intellect. Neither form nor sound, smell, taste, touch, nor idea. Neither the field of sight perception, nor other field of sense, including that of the intellects. Neither enlightenment nor unenlightenment, nor the elements 11, all the links in the chain of existence, including old age and death. Neither the end of enlightenment, nor that of enlightenment, nor that of the 11, or the links. Neither mystery, nor the accumulation of mystery, extension of passion, and the path there too. Neither wisdom nor gain, realization, neither charity nor discipline, neither zeal, patience, meditation, wisdom, nor perfection, and even neither the Tathagata, art, samgya, sambuddhi, paranibbana, nor to eternity, bliss, self, and purity. So it seems to be similar as the Sutra, right? Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, right? So there's no concept of enlightenment, achievement, awakening too. So that's a similar. So when we talk about the absolute and perfect mind, so we go above the duality. Right? There's no space, earth, water, wind, and fire. It's just the common names. We label them in certain way, in certain languages. Neither eyes nor ear, nose, tongue, body. Oh, okay. So what you know about the story of Linchi, right? The Zen master, the famous Zen master Linchi.
Some of them, yeah. The name we've talked about. Wasn't he a national? Wasn't he a national master?
He is no, he one of the famous Zen master. Anyway, the story relate to him that when he was novice, so one day he came to his teacher and asked when he was novice. So he asked the master, Master, I have my eyes, my nose, my tongue, my body, and so forth. But how come? How come this sutra? I mean, that whole sutra, I say there's no eyes, no ears, no tongue, no body. That's reasonable, right? For that novice to ask, right? I think the master didn't reply. But later on, when he grew up and he went to different master, he recognized his principle. So the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue is just it's convenient for us to have this kind of physical body to live. So, but when we're done with this body come back to earth. There's no more use. That's why it's no ears and so forth. Even the enlightenment or unenlightenment, let's go beyond, right? Go beyond the duality of enlightenment and unenlightenment, right? And even the other 11 uh, link. You know about this one, right? 12 clean conditions. You heard about that, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And even need a charity or anything, any concept, whether the concept Buddha, Bodhisattva, art, concept of charity and so forth, you have to leave them aside. Otherwise, get stuck. We get stuck there. Okay. So try to negate everything. Arha, Samya, Sambuddhi, Paranibbana, the true eternity, bliss, self, and purity. So as much as we let go of those type of label, those type of wording, we be free. As much as we attach to them, we still get stuck there. So understandable, right?
Yes, Tay. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's move on, please. The next one. Yeah.
Elimination of is not to reveal the true mind. Thus, the basic enlightened mind of the Tathagata store, being neither mundane nor supermundane, is wonderful in that it is also identical with worldly mind and the elements of space, earth, water, wind, and fire, with eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and intellect, with form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and ideas, with the field of eye perception and all other fields before and including that of intellect, with enlightenment, unenlightenment, and the 11 other links in the chain of existence, before and including old age and death, with the end of enlightenment, of unenlightenment, and of the 11 other links, with misery and its accumulation, with the extinction of passions and the path thereto, with dana, sila, virya, ksanti, jhana, prajna, and paramita, and also with tathagata, arhat, samyak, sambodhi, parinirvana, true eternity, bliss, self, and purity. Yeah, so the idea of letting go of is in the previous previous paragraph, where it's like to say like I am is like an extra step from like it's not needed for what it is stating, like for what the idea of I am states, what it's pointing at. It's like the concept of it is extra. It's like it comes after that the essential mind, and it kind of creates a confusion. So in like the idea of the is of like, okay, the eyes are, where that never really needed to be stated. And in the sense it creates a little confusion when we say that, because then it's like, well, if the eyes are, well, then that's like a separate thing from everything else that really truly exists. And so the previous paragraph was canceling out the is, but then what could just take its place is the is not. And the is not is equally troublesome. It's equally a problem, because then the mind is not just neutral, the mind is kind of still set up against something. So the not is still present. The is maybe be able to go away, but the not is just the shadow of the is. So, and seeing that there's no obstruction to that Bodhi mind, that the phenomena of these concepts of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, those concepts are all equally expressions of the true nature. And even suffering and misery, there can be nothing separate or outside of that true mind. granted, our experience is different before enlightenment, where we can't see that misery is enlightenment, and so we experience it differently. But over and over in the texts, in the masters, all the patriarchs, they all assert this again and again, that it's that like suffering is, you know, is enlightenment, in a sense that we're already enlightened, we just don't see it. I mean, I think it was the first thing the Buddha said after he became enlightened.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's not easy, right? It's not easy for common people to recognize that they have that pure nature, and even for Buddhists, those most of the time we forget that, right? And so if we sit meditation longer, if we do some kind of practice, somehow eventually those thoughts will pop up, right? So we yeah, that's why it's so important was to recognize as it's just it's just illusion. Um, so they come and go. But it's not easy for common people to recognize us. So okay, let's see here. Even they reject dana, right? Reject the idea of dana, sila, right? That generosity, precept, they reject everything. Okay. So let's talk about the absolute truth, right? This one we talk about absolute truth, not the conventional truth. Okay. All right, so here, this is top again. Simultaneous elimination of is and is not to reveal the absolute mind. Thus, the underlying principle of the absolute enlightened mind of the Tata store being adequate with and including both the mundane and supramundane is the both is and is not, and beyond both identity and differences. So common sense, right? When we talk the absolute means absolute truth, we should drop down everything. So I don't know, remember when the sixth patriarch Huineng, he got the rope and bow from the fifth one, and because at that time he was still lay man, so the monks from that monastery chased after him, right? So one monk somehow he caught up with him, and but later on he tried to, can say, take the rope and bow, but he could not. So at the end, so he turned around and asked the master to give him teaching. So the master, I mean the patriarch, he said that don't think about good or don't think about bad. What is your pure nature? In line with this, right? We need to yeah, we need to let go of duality. We could see our pure nature, otherwise no way. No way. Yeah. But let's go, let's go back to our modern age. How could we recognize evidence illusion? How could we let go of those kind of material attachment? This is a big task, big challenge, right?
Yeah, I think because we like, this is a really good example, these paragraphs, of if we try actively to like push them away, well, that'll probably get us to a point where we realize we don't need to push them away.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, you know, we go through the is and through the is not. And I think that the practice of meditation is really the best way forward, because it really appears to be a passive process. The returning, like we've talked about, that analogy of the water settling, that we just need to protect that passive process. And then we get, even in the very beginning, like we get the experience of meditation. Even the first time someone tries to meditate for 5 minutes, generally at the end, they feel more peaceful. They feel more relaxed. And what like we get a sense of, well, this is because we're moving towards the true nature. Like we're letting go of actively maintaining and engaging with these thoughts of duality, and we're just allowing them to slow down, and then we feel better. Like our problems will solve themselves, and emotions, troubling emotions, will resolve themselves. And so then as we continue to meditate, we build that awareness deeper and deeper, and then we're confronted with all of our attachments, the sort of the parts that are holding harder, more unconsciously, and all of our habits and everything that come up. But then they come up, if and they'll emerge in meditation, and we have the opportunity to see them and not set up any sort of resistance to them, but to, like, if we see them clearly and distinguish them, then we're beginning to be freed from those patterns, because we can just let them be okay and stay with that, with the awareness. And there's then we just I think we also build that familiarity with letting things be okay, and gradually get better and better with not being reactive in situations, and noticing when their identification comes in, and when some sort of grasping comes in. And we can be more mindful, and when we're not meditating, to then, like, see the suffering in our grasping, where I think we gradually transform our, like, the way we perceive things transforms, so that it's not like it's a sacrifice that we're making, but the sacrifice would be to continue grasping. We would be sacrificing our peace of mind. So I think for most of us, it needs to be gradual. I think a few lucky of us just, like, and it's done. But for most of us, I think we just kind of have to gradually move that way, to not damage our relationships, to maintain positive relationships, and to just make it easier, I think, on our whole life.
Yeah, I don't know whether you know the story about a Zen master burned the three wooden Buddha statue. You heard about that, right? And also, there one Zen master, he saw that his student used to sit on a big boulder, a big rock. So one day he went out to dry the wood Buddha on that rock. And the next day when the student came, he didn't dare to sit on because the wood of Buddha there. So the master said, "Wow, what's wrong? Why don't you sit down there?" Of course he know, but he still asked. So the master said, "Well, you say still have the kind of attachment. But for us, yeah, for the even devout Buddhists, we would not dare to sit on even the word of the Buddha, right? Because in the sense, in the absolute presence, what is just word, whether it's the word about Buddha, human, animal, the word is the same. But for us, for a clay, we can make a Buddha statue. For a clay, that same clay, we can make a cow, a pig from out of that clay. We can make a clay, we can make a human body from that clay. So depend upon our state of mind. So if we have positive state of mind, if we have pure mind, so we can create the Buddha statue of that piece of clay. Otherwise, we will not come much. So the point is that it's just a function of mind. One thing I want to mention one more time, I don't know whether you remember, in the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha said that you need to observe or recognize things as a flashing light. after the evening rain, flashing light, it's come and go.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see through.
Rainbow?
Yeah.
Like a rainbow?
No, not rainbow. Flashing light.
A
The
flashing light. Oh, like lightning.
thunderstorm. Yeah. And the Buddha said that we need to observe that and contemplate that. This is impermanence. This it's like the cloud. It's like the dew. The dew in the morning, right? The dew on the leaves, and when the sun come up, so it will evaporate it. So I mean that in that sutra, the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha say you should see this as illusion. Of course, probably that's one of the experience mean, right? It's just only halfway, right? The next one is to let go of even the idea of illusion too. That's why the last 30 years is that Zen master sees us the way they are. There's no labeling at all. There's no attaching. There's no rejection. The spirit top, right?
Also very beautiful too, and I've been freeing in a sense, because we suffer so much over all of these impermanent things that eventually we have to let go of anyways, and seeing even just touching that idea for for a moment can be really freeing, and I think inspiring too, because if all of the forms don't really matter, I mean, except with, compassion obviously is still, that's still crucial, for us to have a foundation to practice with, and just to be in alignment with the oneness of everything. But I think it's freeing and inspiring when someone sees it clearly. I think initially it's scary, because it sounds like, I like the things that I think I am don't matter. But it's like, okay, all of the things that I'm worried about, from a certain vantage point, they don't matter. So it's like, it's yeah.
I don't know whether you know the funny story. So there's two monks, one is junior one is senior one. The junior one stay at the city to build a temple and have the followers. The senior one took up to the mountain to do meditation so many years. So later on, the junior monk in the city, he passed away. So when the senior monk, he came down to visit this junior monk, and somehow he recognized that this junior monk just passed away. So he sat down and contemplate where this junior monk took up, or where did he go? Which dream, with realm, did he go to? Whether human realm, animal realm, and so forth. So when when the senior monk entered samadhi, he could not see his younger Dhamma brother, the junior monk, anywhere. It's nowhere for him to find. So basically, after that, he asked the disciple or followers of this junior monk, do you remember during the daily life, during the normal life, normal times, what did your master used to do? So those students of the junior monk say, well, my master loved to plant sugar cane. Sugar cane.
Oh yeah, he's the one who came back as the sugarcane grub.
Yeah, it's that, it's the worms. So the master said, well, oh no, why? So
That's why I couldn't find him.
good about him. So that's why. So he ended samadhi again and did the pray for this junior monk. It's really funny. But the important is that as long as we have some kind of attachment, we're stuck in some form of life. And to tell the story, to lay people, they may laugh. So one person spent the whole lifetime to practice the Buddha monk, but somehow later on they end up at this worm in the sugar cane. It's pity, but actually in Buddhist view, yes, it's like when we go to some places, so somehow we may go astray from the main road, and but later on we find out some way to get back to our main road. So there is the disease. Sometimes they, because of the short confusion, they attach this and that. That's why, for example, they were stuck with the warm body, the animal bodies, but that is not their karma. So whenever they recognize, they move more on to different form of life. It's somehow it's just very interesting. It's really funny too. Yeah. Okay, so let's